Hello, good afternoon, and good morning, and good evening, depending on where you're from. We have the excitement here of the first day of our Innovators showcases here for the aptly named Innovators Summit. And we will have 5 different innovators pitching their wonderful innovations in digital health to our esteemed panel of 3 wonderful human beings who are making some real changes and differences in the world of healthcare, health tech, and investment. Nathan is still yet to join us, but I will start off with introducing Rachel Stillman from Ransomware Ventures. She's a senior associate there, and Philip Linville, who is a principal at Cobalt Ventures. If you'd like to take just 30 seconds, just let us know what you do, and some of the things that you've been up to most recently. And we'll start with you, Rachel, before Rama kicks us off.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Rachel Stillman. As was shared, I'm a senior associate here at Ransomware Ventures, and we at Ransomware are an early stage digital health focused venture fund looking for solutions that align with our thesis of empowering an informed, connected healthcare consumer. So really thinking about how can we not only put technology into the hands of the end user, but ultimately leverage digital solutions to empower consumers to become stewards of their own healthcare journey. So we just closed Fund 2 earlier in 2021. We are actively investing in early stage companies that align with this thesis, and very excited to be here with you all this afternoon.
Wonderful, wonderful to have you on board, Rachel. And Philip, you have just 30 seconds before Rama gets started to tell us what you've been doing over at Cobalt.
Sure. Yeah, Philip Linville, principal of Cobalt Ventures. Rachel, nice to meet you. We obviously led the Series C round and Recovery 1. My colleague Dave Eichler led that round, but as mentioned, I'm with Cobalt Ventures. We are the corporate venture capital arm of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. So investing off of Blue KC's balance sheet in digital health companies that benefit the payer universe. More and more, we have a strategic link to our parent company, being Blue KC, and if not that, a link to the broader payer universe. Nice to meet you all.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Rachel, for coming on and sitting on the panel here. Just to let the audience know, each of our innovators has 10 minutes to present or pitch their digital health solution, including Q&A from our wonderful panel and any Q&A from the audience. Rama, you have an extra 30 seconds since I took up some time, but I'm going to hand it over to Rama from BlockCube to get us started.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can see my slides. And I plan to cover my piece in about 6 to 7 minutes. BlockCube is basically focusing on clinical trial software. And our intent is that we want to accelerate trials for small and mid-sized life science firms. And we're targeting the clinical operations teams. Because guess what?
You got to share your slides. I'm sorry.
Just a minute. I thought I was doing it. Just give me a minute. See what happened. I said share screen. Give me a minute.
Okay, perfect.
Is it coming through?
Yeah.
Well,
or it's coming up. Yeah.
Let me start again. Yeah. Clear? Sorry for that technical glitch. And I go a second time. So BlockCube is basically focusing on clinical trial software solutions. And our focus really is to accelerate clinical trials for mid-sized small companies and targeting the clinical operations teams. Because very frankly, who is the patient today? And COVID has really caused a complete change in how we look at clinical trials. I spent almost 28 years in the pharma industry and also headed clinical development finance for Novartis Oncology worldwide and other roles. And I saw issues both at the strategic and at the tactical level. And these issues are broadly in about 5 buckets. Trials take place for people who are less familiar with clinical trials. trials really take place across multiple locations, multiple countries. And sometimes there are data integrity issues. Then in order to keep check and governance, there are mechanical manual checks that are done. And there's often a lack of real-time data. And because in the industry, people get paid pretty late because of inefficient systems, you also have site and physicians dropping out for financial reasons. All in all, there's a low productivity, and also there are paper-intensive process. And now, for example, diversity of patients has become an issue. The impact is pretty significant. 1 day delayed is almost $8 million. 17% have had a data integrity issue. Physicians get paid after 4 months, and this is US data, and sometimes patients after 2 years. And now we have a new wrinkle, which is the ransomware vulnerability, as you've seen last year when some large companies got hit by ransomware attacks. And diving down to how a clinical trial takes place for those in the audience who are less familiar, it starts off with an unmet need and goes all the way across to the data goes to the FDA, whoever the regulator is. Our focus is not to boil the ocean, but focus specifically on the site and clinical trials aspect of it, which accounts for 26 billion of costs. Our solution really has a mobile platform, an iPad. It is decentralized, which is running on a cloud. And on top of it, we have a single source of truth or a single kind of engine, which is the blockchain engine, a distributed ledger. Normally, you don't go into a distributed ledger to that degree because for a customer, they're really concerned with the benefits. And the benefits are we can get data into real-time, transactional, and can check things as we go along. The system is structured in a modular way. So on one hand, we got multiple persona, and for information security, they access different things. The auditors can see everything. But even more importantly, depending on how the company wishes to grow, different modules come into play, whether it is only the financial module or only the EDC that takes it forward. Now, these modules are trade jargon, which consists of e-consent, which is electronic consent that a patient is consented to the trials. There's trial master file, there's data capture, etc. But what we've used to distinguish ourselves are a smart contract, financials, which pays accounts and budgets. And we've got some other critical things underway. Let me show you how this looks in a simple 90-second video clip that demonstrates what a system does. The system really is, as I said, multiple modules, and the modules are designed to cover different features on an end-to-end unified basis. Data gets captured like a classic case report form, and that is stored in the blockchain. Then we've got other aspects like the documents used in a trial put together and kept so that auditors can see it easily. We also have an audio level of informed consent. So people who are illiterate or have poor language comprehension can participate. And all this is dated, tagged, etc. We have a query management module that checks the quality of data. We want to be sure that data going into a blockchain is pretty good before it goes. And queries are one of the challenges between when a last patient last visit takes place and the database gets locked to check everything gets right. And to make it simple and easy to use, we also have a dashboard that tells if an adverse event has happened or where the data is coming from. And what we're now building is a blockchain-based track and trace that will go forward, moving it forward. Then we have a finance module, which I talked about. And all this is integrated into our clinical trial supply chain system moving forward. So this is what we mean by the end-to-end unified module that works in our case to keep the trials moving smoothly and allowing a person to know exactly what is happening. On the right, you see a dashboard which a physician saw actually during a case where we did a pilot. And we saved almost 50% of the time. And very recently, Boehringer Ingelheim built a system with IBM, and they tested it out. And they did that and showed a 99% decrease in costs as well as in unit of activity. we are cognizant of the challenges that we have from a competitive standpoint. But what we see is that if you need continuous data flowing together in real time in a unified pattern, we do have a very unique solution. And for the investors in the audience and in this panel, the market opportunity is pretty significant because even though it is about 7 billion today, it's supposed to double in about 6 to 7 years' time. And we've been very focused to take for the early adopters a very narrow therapeutic area and a narrow phase and a narrow geopolitical area to target moving forward. We want to do that with a low-cost POC, move to licensed trials, then move to a SaaS, and later on, leverage the challenges or the beauty of tokenization. Demonstrated very tight capital management, friends and family round 1.2, 4 versions, and now we have an FDA-compliant structure. We're getting good interest from mid-sized companies and 1 large company, and we've got about 5 that we're in the last stages of negotiation with, which we hope to land in 2022. And in order to make this happen, we've got one of the most seasoned set of advisors and execution colleagues to make this a success. And this goes right beyond just scientific colleagues, but also people from a diversity perspective, as well as from a commercial and IT strategy perspective. And our intent really from the investors in the audience is to raise about $2.4 million because we want to kind of onboard the tech team, hire the CXO team, and expand the product and sales activities in order to bring these 5 customers on board. For the customers in the audience or the potential customers or sales leads, we believe you have a unique system that could meet your needs in a unique way, especially for decentralized trials, and one that can protect both the patient and the physician in the execution of it. With that, our goal really is to disrupt the industry, not build a better horse carriage, but a better car. And I'd like to thank you for your time and open it up for questions.
Wonderful, Rama. Thank you very much. You really cut it down to you really came down to the wire for you. I see Nathan's joined us as well. Hi, Nathan. Thanks for coming on. I'm going to actually pass over to you, Philip. First of all, because I think Rachel's gone offline for a bit. So I'm going to see if you have any questions for Rama.
Yeah, Rama, thank you. Nice to meet you. I may take a bit of a back seat on this Q&A. I know we're down to 2 panelists, but I have a little bit less experience maybe than some of the others in clinical trials. But I guess just to talk about the technology, have you guys built a decentralized ledger? Are you building your own? Is it built on the Ethereum network, or is this plans for the future? And then a follow-up, why do it this way from such an early stage? Seems like a big investment to kind of decentralize that ledger when, I understand that it's cost effective at scale, but initially, I mean, there's, AWS, Azure, all these other kind of repositories to house your data.
So 3 things. One is we've built it actually in Hyperledger Fabric. We wanted a private permission chain because this data at this stage in a clinical trial is the crown jewels of any company doing it from an innovations perspective. So we didn't want to go to open source. Secondly, with Ethereum also, there is a price to be paid in gas and ether. And our whole objective is to reduce the cost of the trial. And the third thing is that the industry as such has already started using Hyperledger Fabric for supply chain track and trace of pharmaceutical products. So the ease of acceptance of the blockchain protocol was there. There are other things, technical things, which I'll leave unsaid right now. Coming to the second part of the question, we are working in the cloud, but it's a blockchain Hyperledger Fabric engine. And the intent really is not to work in a silo, as a lot of systems are, but to give a mid-sized company the capabilities to do it end-to-end. And using smart contracts, our finance module would speed up payments dramatically, let alone giving transactional data rapidly. And by giving a single source of truth, we are also enhancing the data integrity tremendously. I do have a slide, which I'll say later, that people like, Viva study said 99% of people are unhappy with systems as they exist. And we wanted to make a distinctive, unified, and unique system as to make a difference.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rama. I don't think we got time for another question unless Nathan, you have Nathan or Rachel, you have one quick burning question from you guys.
I have a quick one, but Rachel, I'll defer to you if you have one though.
Sure. I was just going to ask competitive landscape. Obviously, this market's starting to get a bit more saturated with the Science 37s and the likes of the world. How do you think about, so this addresses where you sit, and then maybe in follow-up, can BlockQ be complementary and be leveraged in partnership with some of these larger players?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, from an investor perspective, technically, we can be a bolt-on acquisition to any of the CROs, et cetera, that are kind of coming together, especially as you know that Medable and Science 37 raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Second thing is that if anybody wishes on the left-hand side to go to the top right-hand block, yeah, that's definitely a partnership. We have explored having white label solutions with some of the people over here, which I'll like to keep confidential. So yes, that's feasible.
Great, thanks.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rama. Nathan, I'll let you go first with the next innovator. Rama, thank you very much for your presentation. We are running a little bit slightly behind, but Juan, I promise you will get your 10 minutes for sure. And Rama, thank you very much for your pitch. And I'm going to hand over to Juan Jimenez of AcuCardia for you folks.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to be sharing my screen 1 second. Jerry, I can also share my screen 1 second. Can you all see my screen? Again, thank you, Jerry. Great meeting the panelists and the fellow presenters. I am Juan Jimenez, co-founder and CEO of AcuCardia. We have in the audience, I'd like to recognize my co-founder, Sadiq Ali, and also our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Navid Rasby, that are also in the audience. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in the US. Nearly 60 million Americans suffer from a cardiac arrhythmia, which may lead to dementia, stroke, and even sudden cardiac arrest. Given the prevalence and severity of this problem, ECG sensors are now capable of recording data 24/7 and are embedded in everything, from smartwatches to biofabrics to even toilet seats. As a result, the amount of ECG sensor data being generated has grown exponentially. However, this has caused new and different problems, in particular to clinicians. AcuCardia's goal is to make all of this data accurate, insightful, and actionable, and change the way cardiovascular disease is managed forever. Our core product is an Ecg Analytics Engine leveraging state-of-the-art signal processing, image analysis, and AI capabilities. What makes our product unique is that it easily and securely integrates with any device, from a Holter monitor to an ECG patch to a smartwatch, provides results in near real time, has clinical grade accuracy, and is reimbursable with established CPT codes. We have validated and tested our analytics engine according to the gold standards of the industry. Our performance is far superior to traditional clinical workflows involving multi-layer analysis by humans. This analysis is typically done by cardiovascular technicians or nurses. We strongly believe that clinical staff should be closer to the patient rather than carrying out repetitive tasks that technology can perform. Our offerings are relevant across 3 large and growing segments in the healthcare, and also is relevant in tangential spaces such as leak detection and biometrics. We also believe that physicians, payers, and most importantly, patients have the right to select the best ECG device for them. But that selection shouldn't be a limitation to access the best analytics available in the market. That is why AcuCardia, we are aiming to collaborate with device makers from all spectrums. So why should device makers and clinicians want to work with us? Let me share a sad story with you. A few months ago, a cardiologist known to us prescribed a Holter monitor from one of the leading companies and waited nearly 10 days to get the report back from them. When his office called to schedule a follow-up appointment, he was told that the patient had passed away the previous day. I am not saying this story to get emotional points in a pitch day. I am saying this story because this is an outcome that Accucardia can help avoid. We could have produced that same report in under 6 minutes. This is why clinicians and device makers want to work with us. And most importantly, patients need better outcomes now. And the fact that the economics are sound for all different stakeholders is what makes this commercially viable today. For example, for our ambulatory use case, we can provide results to device makers and OEMs and IDTF 66% cheaper. We can produce results 80% faster. We can make cardiac technician 4 times more efficient, and we can reduce doctor visits to both patients and payers. Our closest competitor was acquired by a device maker earlier this month. We can hence say today that Accucardia is the only device agnostic relevant player in the market. Our founding team is comprised of AI researchers, tech entrepreneurs, electrical engineers, and healthcare executives, as well as world-class cardiologists and advisors from both the US and the UK. We have raised $1.5 million to date, mostly from angels and friends. Earlier this year, we filed our first FDA 510(k) application and expect clearance in early 2022. We are currently recruiting participants as part of our first clinical study for our Apple Watch use case in collaboration with the HITLAB and SUNY Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn. Also, we have initiated a research project with our first potential customer and are set for commercial revenues this coming year. We are starting investor outreach for our first institutional raise in Q1 of this coming year. Also, we are looking to collaborate with device makers, remote patient monitoring and telehealth companies, healthcare systems and payers looking to improve patient outcomes, leveraging ECG data. Looking forward to your questions and emails, and thank you.
Wonderful, Juan. Thank you very much for that wonderful pitch for Accucardia. Nathan, I'm going to go over to you first, since you didn't get to ask a question last round. So over to you.
All right. Well, sounds great. And Juan, wonderful to meet you.
I'm here.
I need to think a little bit further because you answered my question right at the end. I was going to ask what your traction had been to date. And so congratulations on that upcoming study that you're going to be working on with HITLAB and SUNY Downstate. So for the time being, I'm going to pass it over to Philip and Rachel, just so I can think of something. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Go ahead. Rachel, Philip, and either you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thanks, Juan. Great presentation.
Thank you, Rachel.
Talk to me a little bit about what the physician workflow augmentation looks like. Obviously, when you bring in a new solution such as this, for cardiologists in particular, I know they're time strapped, so would love to learn how this kind of currently sits in, what integrations are in place.
Sure.
That'd be helpful.
Sure. I'm going to give you one example in the ambulatory space for the long-term EKG analysis, such as a Holter or an ECG patch. From a cardiologist perspective, our solution doesn't add more steps to their clinical workflow. It only reduces the lead time in which they receive the report from cardiovascular technicians. So our product is meant to, well, our end goal is to fully automate the work of the cardiovascular technician in analyzing long-term EKGs. From a physician perspective, our product is going to help them get the reports faster and more accurate, as well as they can start treating patients sooner than current workflows.
And on the integration front, are you integrated into the EHR platforms today, or what does that look like?
We want to go one step before that. We want to license and integrate our technology with the current software offerings of the device makers. Our product is an API accessible, so our product would be interconnected with the different software from different device makers. So therefore, this software typically are connected with the HR platform, so it will be one step before that.
Got it. Very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Like we have about 90 seconds left for you, Juan. Philip, do you have anything for Juan?
Yeah, so competitors in the space, you had Philips on there. Obviously, they manufacture some devices in the space. They have an investment, I know, in a company called DIA, Imaging Analysis. I mean, is that, are you competing with those kind of AI-enabled ultrasound augmentation software tools? I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with DIA or DIA.
We are familiar with the ultrasound augmentation and CT augmentation. There are different players in that space, but we are only performing EKG analysis on EKG data. So we are not involved in ecography or CT of the vascular area of the heart. So our closest competitor was Cardiologs. They were just acquired by Philips earlier this month. And therefore we feel alone and happy to be alone in the device agnostic space, because I think I cannot believe other large device makers are going to be willing to partner with a company owned by a competitor. So we want to stay independent.
Okay, got it.
Wonderful. And we've got about 30 seconds left. Nathan, do you think of anything to ask Juan, or are we good to let him go?
We're good to let him go. Sorry, Juan, that was great. And thanks again.
You're welcome. You're welcome always to send me an email with questions if you want.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Gracious as always. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. We're going to now pass over to Joanne Waters from Information Media Corps. So Joanne, if you want to share your video and your screen if you have a presentation.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. You're a bit low, Joanne. You might want to speak up a little bit.
Okay, how's that?
Bit better.
Bit better? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Jerry, for that introduction. Today, we're going to be discussing how we are going to radically transform the way clinical trials are conducted. We have, here we are. We have a very big opportunity in the clinical research world for drug discovery and drug development. The opportunity lies in addressing something that we're all very familiar with, which is non-adherence to a prescribed medication. As you see here, it's a very big opportunity when it comes to inclusion criteria to make sure that patients entering into a clinical trial are the enrollment target audience that we're looking for. The biggest noise in this solution is the non-adherence. Non-adherence, also referred to, by the way, as a non-compliance. So what that means is people, they either forget to take their medicine or they don't want to take their medicine for different reasons. And so this is what we are targeting as a company here. So we see here the healthcare burden, latest trend of $177 billion that put to healthcare burden, which is something that can be, related obviously to non-adherence for healthcare. When it comes to a patient, we also see that it is the poor health outcomes for the patient. It can relate to additional illnesses. If you're not taking your medicine as prescribed, you might have more side effects. You don't feel very well. So that leads into poorer health outcomes, as well as avoidable hospital admissions, as well as avoidable readmissions back into an emergency room, and sadly as well, premature death. The current serving acting commissioner of the US Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Janet Woodcock, peaks a bit grim there, where she mentions that less than 1 in 10 drug approvals have a chance of getting into the market, which is pretty staggering, really. Over the last while, we see the real world evidence when it comes to medication non-adherence. So we see that 40% of patients are non-adherent to their medication. We see that adherence deteriorates over time. So for chronic illnesses, that's really quite concerning that it drastically drops off. We see what is called deblistering. It is not a myth, by the way. So we have one particular client is dealing with a trial with hepatitis C patients, and just prior to her seeing her patient that morning, the patient actually pushed out every one of their medication, every one of their doses out of a medication card, which is quite alarming for both the patient health, but as well from a drug sponsor who manufactures that drug. We see in the clinical research side and the academic side, when it's related to an opioid, as an example, you can prescribe the medication, but when a patient goes home, we don't have any visibility. There's no light to see how the behavior has been happening. So what's happening is the physicians think that the patients are taking their medicine as prescribed, and in reality, it's not the case. So IMC, the company, has been designing and manufacturing adherence solutions and tools for over 2 decades. So you, the panelists, I see you're a younger generation. If you can close your eyes for a moment, go back 20 years when you remember like your first Xbox, your first Apple Store opening. That is when this company was founded to address medication non-adherence. How we do that is through printed sensors and electronic tags that help record objectively real-time data. There's no patient burden, or a technology burden for the patient. So you can have anything from here. You see a pill bottle, you open that. We know the date and time that you did open it. We also see in clinical trials on the right-hand side, you have a blister card. So each one of those doses can be traced down to a unique identifier. And the patient just takes their pills as they normally would. And these data are real-time objective adherence data solutions. These data can be pushed. We talked about APIs prior in the previous presentation. So we can integrate all of this data technology into existing platforms and make it an interoperable solution. And as well with the companion mobile apps to push notifications to improve adherence for the patient at home, for remote monitoring and hybrid trials that are decentralized now because we can't get back into an office and into the clinic site and into the physician's office. There are many benefits. So obviously running a clinical trial, we have to have statistical power, and that power proves that the drug is efficacious or not during the whole process of the development phase. When you have adherence monitoring solutions, you have an increase in the data accuracy, as well as the data integrity, which is very important for source data, as well as optimizing the correct dose. Because a lot of drugs, when they reach the FDA approval, the dose is too high. And so FDA mandates them to have a dose reduction, again, causing further delay in getting that to the patients. So we, as well, you have a faster access for patients to a promising treatment that they've been waiting for all along, as well as it's safe and effective for the product. We have an enormous return on investment. We see that for each 1% increase in adherence. So you saw at the beginning, that was a big chunk of a non-adherence as it relates to a clinical trial development process. If you could just increase that by 1%, you can reduce your sample size. So your sample size is the amount of people you need to prove that that drug is working as it should. And then you can reduce that by a 2% and still maintain the needed power to prove your drug. The reduction obviously provides ROI in 2 ways. So first of all, you have fewer patients, which saves a lot of money in recruiting, because in clinical trials, when you're recruiting a patient, one of the biggest struggles is to recruit patients, but to retain them throughout the trial. And you want to retain them because you need them to prove that your drug is working. And when you retain a patient, that's the positive ROI. But if you lose a patient because they're not taking their medication properly, maybe they're not taking their drug, so they have side effects and they don't feel well, and they're doubting that the trial is actually effective for them. So they drop out, and that delays the last dose, last patient process. As well, smaller sample size, guess what? So for the pharmaceutical company that's developing the drug, they actually have a longer time to enjoy the patent life on that product, which makes a huge difference, whether it comes down to weeks longer on the patent life or months and months longer on the patent life. It's a big benefit there as well. Where do we see us as a company? So we believe that every trial through drug development process should be run using some type of compliance or adherence monitoring product and solution, whether it would be ours, whether it would be some other, but we feel as a company that that is our main goal, is to make sure that there is adherence monitoring in every clinical trial that is run. And as you can see here, at some point, and this is a very old quote, by the way, at some point, perhaps not in the far future, it will seem as wrong to run a clinical trial without compliance measurement as without randomization. And that is all I have for you today. I know that's a lot of information. We are a bit different because we're not, we have been around for 2 decades. And so our technology competitors there are a few. We have bottle competitors, we have different types of competitors, but in the world of adherence data analytics, products and solutions, IMC is the only company worldwide to have all of these solutions in one company, one roof. And thank you for your time.
Wonderful, Joanne. Thank you very much for that very thorough presentation. We have about 1 minute for some questions from the panel. So I'm just going to open it up and see who wants to jump in.
Yeah, I have a quick question. And Joanne, thank you for your presentation. So from my understanding, this is more so measuring compliance in the sense that they're taking the appropriate dosages, the appropriate amount of pills. Do you partner with other especially like in these in the world of these hybrid and virtual trials, do you partner with other organizations or other companies that are more so on like the notification side of the equation, saying like, hey, you need to take your medication at this time, and making sure that you're compliant from that standpoint as well, rather than just the drug itself?
Yeah, we actually have an entire solution that encompasses the companion apps for the patients, where they can have the push notifications, they can receive reminders when it is time to take their medication. And that feeds back into their adherence and whether or not they are compliant with the therapeutic window that was set to meet that. So absolutely, yes.
So sorry, I misunderstood. I was looking at your slide with all the different solutions and the vials and the syringes and the pills, but I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, yeah, there seems to be a second half of that equation.
I didn't get into the data communication part of that, but if you think of, so for remote monitoring as an example, if you think of Apple Pay and the contactless payment out there, especially COVID that everyone is aware of now, where you just simple tap a badge and tap your card, that's the data communication we use to take the adherence data from the package and push that through an app into a system, into our cloud. And as well, we are interoperable with existing systems and feed into other software as well, but an entire solution, or flexible enough to be all our own.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful, thank you. I think that brings us to time, unfortunately, Joanne. But you know, if anybody has any questions, either from the gallery or panelists, if you have any other questions for Joanne, please feel free to network with her at the summit, whether it's the networking rooms or the exhibitor booths. And I'm going to now welcome Mike Quallett from Virtual Senior Care Center. So going from medical adherence over to senior care now. So thank you very much, Joanne. Wonderful to hear from you. And I'm now going to pass it over to you, Michael.
Okay, and I'm just gonna put, can everyone see my screen at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so I know we're a little behind time, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our pitch. I wanted to introduce you guys today to the VSC, standing for the Virtual Senior Center. It's a unique platform that we've introduced into the market this year. And generally, what it does is it takes on one of a very large problem that we're having in the country right now, especially with the pandemic still going on, around social isolation among the elderly and homebound. It's been a problem for a long time. and different people have attacked it in different ways. You can see that one of the reasons that it's a big problem is because it has demonstrable effects on health. Some studies have made it as effective or as damaging as smoking and obesity among the elderly, and there's just nothing good to these being socially isolated, especially when you're older. Socially isolated individuals cost more. Most of the people that are isolated obviously want to be at home. They want to be independent, but for various circumstances, they may not be able to. And staff at the various organizations that cater to them often aren't equipped to deal with them in that sense. So one of the challenges is, how do we address this growing population? I don't have to go over all the stats with you. I can, obviously share the ones that are here, but the opportunity and challenges is huge. The population is ever growing, looking to double over the next 30, 40 years. A lot of those people will be alone, and they will, overwhelming majority of them will be looking to single payer financing in terms of their healthcare. So we have this huge tsunami of people, and how do we deal with them, and how do we make the best use of taking care of them and reaching them? And that's kind of where the VSC comes in. The VSC addresses this issue of social isolation, and at the same time also addresses one of the other problems we have with the aging is the digital literacy gap. So how does it do that? Oops, sorry. Well, very simply, the VSC is a virtual community building platform that lets the homebound people engage with each other online, in groups, in communities that are designated by the caregivers that deal with them. One way of engaging them is the way that self-help itself does, is through live, online, instructor-led classes. They're not signing on and watching a movie together. They're signing on and all taking a class that they would normally take at the senior center before. The VSC itself is very simple to use. It's secure. It's shareable, meaning every group that comes on can share the content that it brings with other groups on there. So there's no danger of anybody coming on and not having something positive to do. And that's really where the VSC's mission is. It's focused around the homebound elderly, and it's focused around eliminating that detriment of social isolation. I'll just give you a very quick summary, because unlike some of the other people who mentioned earlier, the VSC has been around for about a decade. It was the brainchild of a nonprofit, Self-Help Community Services. About 10 years ago, they realized they were losing people to the centers, to their normal services. People were sicking out. People were, becoming too sick to go to the centers, or they were losing their ability to drive there, or for whatever reason, and they truly became homebound. Like most of us sort of established or experienced during the pandemic, these people were not going to ever be able to come back. So how do we still engage with them? And they built this platform, for their own users, tried it out, and over the years, it's grown organically until a few years ago, when it was given a chance to, be rebuilt from the ground up. And that's basically right about the time the pandemic, hit. And the opportunity was, hey, we've been doing this successfully. We've been engaging with this group. We've been having success for many years. We really should be able to, repeat this. And we got to make the platform so that it's easy for other people to do. So over the last decade, all of that knowledge has been put into the new version of the platform, which was really just released this year. We've really been looking outside of our own circle of influence, which is New York City area, for about 11 months. And in that time, we've worked with a whole group of different people. We've brought on a lot of different types of groups and seen what happens, you know, how we can make sure this gets spread across the country. Right now, we have the platform available. We have the ability to onboard, you know, any number of people. So we're looking at a couple of different groups as our target. Obviously, we have a contract with New York State government, government offices of aging to supply to their counties. We look at very large Fortune 100 companies that offer premium benefits to their employees, you know, as an option that we're exploring too. We have healthcare and insurance groups that we're partnering with now, starting to partner with, you know, to bring it in so that there's a insurance and Medicaid component to the payment. And then we're actually trying to work directly with hospital systems themselves to offer it as a way to keep their particular costs down by making sure that, you know, the people that need the care are getting it and aren't, you know, basically wasting away at home. I'll give you a real quick look at it because we don't have time to do an actual demo. The VSC has, this is the main screen for it. This is what a user would see when they log on. There are mobile versions available as well, and we have plans. We're building a smart TV app as well that should be available beginning of next year. They have sticky menu options. The person can never get lost. They can never pick something and become lost. Everything they ever want to do is there. They can always hit home and come back. They have the ability to chat with each other. If they're not going to a live class with other people, they can make appointments with each other just like they could and schedule their own, which come up on their schedule. They get a quick glance of all the material that's coming up for the day. You'll notice it can be branded by community or by group so that somebody can be getting material from New York City, they can be getting stuff from Florida, they can be getting stuff from all over the country, different groups that, you know, put their content up on the platform. And then they can customize everything to their individual group. So no matter how big the platform gets, it's always about that local group, their announcements, their ads, their content, their people, their control. So they can build their community up with the least amount of effort and without influence or, excuse me, you know, impact from us. It really solves all of the problems that anybody that got caught flat-footed by the pandemic, which was basically all of us, and looking to do a virtual community. When the pandemic hit, suddenly now people couldn't get to their people. They you know, they had to go back to just straight phone calls. There was limited interaction, and people became very inventive, figuring out ways to do things. For our own purposes, we basically just started onboarding everybody else that was available onto our pre-existing platform and went along, you know, like nothing was normal. You know, other groups had to figure out, how do I use this technology? What's appropriate? How do I keep it secure? How do I make it simple? You know, how do I not overburden my staff? And we basically present that entire you know, system to them and say, this is a way we've done it. This is a successful product. This is a secure system. Here's how you can repeat that. And, you know, here's the model, go for it. So we keep it simple. We have data over the years, 10 years worth of data about, you know, what works, what doesn't work, what types of interactions people enjoy, how to do engagements. All the data's there. Not kept in the system. So the system itself is, you know, is empty of any user data. It's all kept off-site in a different instance. So it's completely safe in terms of security. Right now, we're still operating under the self-help nonprofit. We're looking to move out of that into a for-profit model for this service alone. We have clients, as I said, in the government space. In each one of the markets we're targeting in the new thing, we have an example market or example client that we're using. And we're trying very hard to look, you know, nationwide, excuse me, as the new year's coming. Up until the pandemic, there really was no competition. And we kind of looked at that as a good thing to see there's been a growth of people offering similar types of services, more in a Facebook type of model. see how many members we can scoop up, whatever, and then we can look probably to monetize their information. That's something that we are not planning on doing. We look at it and say we're going to keep it simple, secure, safe, and scalable. And that safe means that none of their information is ever going to be monetized. We've got a more mature content management and distribution. It's a brand new platform, so the technology is tried and being tested now for more than a year. And we get a new business entity that's going to help us transition from working under our current model as a nonprofit providing a service to outside parties, to a fully commercial entity capable of accepting partners and investments and things like that. So we're looking to do that, in the new year. And then finally, that's it. I want to thank you for giving me your time, and I'll give the time I haven't used back to you for any questions.
Wonderful, Michael. Thank you very much. Well, I mean, I'm afraid we're pretty much at time, and we have time for one quick question if anyone wants to jump in from the panel.
Yeah, so it looks like if I'm understanding it correctly, nonprofit history, selling primarily to long-term care facilities, maybe some hospital systems, but haven't attacked it from the payer angle yet. Is that correct? You haven't sold to Medicare Advantage, you haven't sold to the other carriers?
We're in the process of the deal with a carrier now. Yes, we haven't signed the papers, but
who curates the content that's available to a community, and is it fairly localized? I saw your dashboard there. Who curates that content?
Every community has their own content. As one of the providers and having 10 years of experience with the program, Self-help supplies about 70% of the content on there, which is over 6,000 programs a year. And every community that comes on has the ability to deliver content locally just to their users, or they can share to what we call the common calendar, and then everybody can see it. So as each group comes on, they can contribute to that curation.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for that very thorough presentation.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much. And if anyone wants to again network with Michael, he'll be around in the Innovator booths and I'm sure around at the summit. But thank you very much. And without further ado, I'm going to quickly hand over to Richard Hanbury of Sana Health. So we are probably going to go about 5 minutes over time here to just wrap up. So over to you, Richard.
Sorry about that, everyone. Rachel, we've already spoken. Nice to see you again. Nathan, we're actually a plug and play company. I think we've spoken once, but briefly. And Philip, pleasure to meet you. So this is the device. The very short story on the device is I bust my back going off a bridge in the Yemen, age 19, TBI, STI, and I had a nerve damage pain problem that was so severe I had a 5-year life expectancy. So I had to make a device to solve that problem. Solved it for me, and now working out all the different ways in which we can help other people with it. So that's the device. Our first market is fibromyalgia, and we have breakthrough status. We're coming towards the end of a pivotal in fibromyalgia, and we also have another pivotal underway already in neuropathic pain and Mount Sinai. And the next 2 pivotals to start will be anxiety and PTSD. PTSD we just got a DoD grant for. In the mental health space, we're being seen as both within the VA and in the civilian population. Basically, what do you do when you haven't got enough psychiatrists and psychologists to send people to? What do you do when you know that the apps and the CBT delivered by apps is not enough to help people as much as they need to be helped? So we're kind of that next tier down whilst people are waiting to go to psychologists. That's where we're aiming at. That's where we fit. Going back to the fibromyalgia market as the first market. It is 10 million Americans diagnosed. It's all body pain, 85% women. it is a mixture of pain and mental health issues. And currently, the best-selling drug is Lyrica, 2.5 billion sold last year. And 80% of people who take Lyrica stop because the side effects are so bad. So current best treatment is cocktail of drugs, and we are positioning ourselves as an alternative to the various drugs that are not working. So I can come back to the finances on that bit, but basically we have completed 4 pilot studies before the pivotals that we started. Overall, similar results in pain reduction, anxiety, and depression reduction. The device pulses light through closed eyes and sound through your ears. So the user puts it on, turns it on, lays back in a reclined position or in bed, and then lets the device do the simulation process. We're also collecting data through the heart rate variability sensor on the forehead, if you can see that there. And yeah, in terms of mechanism of action, there is a thing called hemispheric balance, and I can go through that in the questions if you have it. But essentially, we have early data showing that the mechanism is as we suspect, but it is early data. But essentially, what we're doing is we're putting information into the brain using the brain's own information system, rather than the neuromodulation based on magnetics with TMS or electrics, where you're doing it with an electrical signal or a magnetic field. We're using the brain's own information system to get in the information we want to get in. And with the sensor on the forehead, we're moving very rapidly towards a closed loop feedback system. So we can adjust in real time to whichever sub-algorithms are actually impacting the patient the best. I can I can go over this in questions on the competitive landscape, but essentially we are treating, because we are dealing with a central mediation issue, we are able to go after the mental health and pain aspects that are central. So that means that we will partner well with things like spinal cord stimulators that are all focused on peripheral pain. In our pilot data on fibromyalgia, we improved quality of life 5 times more than Lyrica. And I'll come back on, and then on this is the FRQR, which is the quality of life within fibromyalgia, and GAD-7, that's anxiety reduction, and then data on depression. So the pivotal will finish early February. We have started the largest non-drug fibromyalgia study ever done, and that is with the Mighty. We recruited the first 100 in the first 4 days. We are tweaking that in each batch of 100 to collect data around exactly who we're working best for and who's willing to pay out of pocket while we're waiting for reimbursement. The early data, we've got some of the early data from the second part of the pivotal study. We're continuing to see improvements all the way to 7 months in anxiety and depression, and sleep efficiency and sleep disturbance. Yeah, we are on market as a wellness device, which has allowed us to test out a lot of our systems. We are aiming to do small amounts of wellness sales to enable us to maintain that wellness label, because it massively speeds up the way in which we can do R&D. Yeah, so the fibromyalgia pivotal is underway. The neuropathic pain study is also underway. That will be the second to finish. The commercial proof study that people will pay out of pocket, that's well underway. Anxiety, we just got asked to submit another DoD grant, so that might be slightly delayed while we're waiting for the grant. But the PTSD, we've already been given that grant. So there's a lot in our pipeline. IP-wise, we have 2 patents granted and 6 more in pending, that covers the audio visual stimulation and covers the feedback loop. And team primed to build, and I'm rushing through. We've raised 18 million so far. We are currently on a bridge round, which is a safe note. We've raised 4 out of the 6 we are looking for, and we're looking for that extra 2 to 4 more on that bridge note currently. That will get us through to a very large Series A in October next year, by which time we'll have fibromyalgia, neuropathic pain, anxiety, and early PTSD data, and possibly also adolescent depression data by that time as well. So that's where we are, and I'll leave the rest of the time for questions.
Wonderful, Richard. Thank you very much I'm sorry, I apologize. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. We have about 2 minutes, just to be fair to you, Richard, for some questions from the panel. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys to ask any questions to Richard.
Hey, Richard, what's the size of the round that you're doing?
It's between 6 and 8 million, of which we've raised 4 already.
Okay. I thought I saw 20 million on that last slide.
Oh no, that's what we will be raising in the Series A in October.
Series A, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so between 6 and 8. Okay.
And Richard, as you're thinking about, good to see you again, as you're thinking about the evolution of your go-to-market strategy, I know that's changed a little bit since we last spoke, so would love to learn maybe how you're thinking about prioritization across the different segments.
Yeah, so fibromyalgia is the one of the areas that doesn't have an existing distribution channel that is particularly strong. It is half sort of available through D2C and half through pain clinics. So that is one that, because there are no obvious channel partners, that is one that it is looking like we need to focus on doing that one ourselves. Neuropathic pain, we've already had early discussions with Boston Scientific, Abbott, and Medtronic about linking up with spinal cord stimulators on neuropathic pain, and it's highly likely that one of those will become a partner and license for that. So it's channel specific, and the priority around who can we partner with that allows us to do things very fast, and where do we have to do things on our own. The PTSD through the VA is a sort of slower burn. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to get through all the VA hurdles. So that is that's not going to be a marketing priority for quite a while, because it's really a clinical priority. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah, it does. It does. Just again, thinking about kind of staging and how you map that with the regulatory strategy, but you did a nice job of outlining that. So
yeah, the regulatory strategy is really, given that we're only allowed to talk to the FDA about one thing at one time, that's actually our biggest bottleneck. And so it is, what is the easiest to get through the de novo, because everything else becomes a 510K after that,
yeah,
within pain, and likewise within mental health. So it is fibromyalgia first, neuropathic pain second, PTSD. By that time, we should have enough data to get breakthrough status. So that will be the next to go in, and then it'll be anxiety. And that is also the reason why within depression, we're going after a subset of adolescent depression, because that also affords us breakthrough status. So we're basically trying to prioritize the things that we can do in the fastest amount of time with the FDA, because that's our bottleneck.
got it. That makes sense.
Okay, well, wonderful, Richard. Thank you very much for your presentation as well. I think we have 5 really strong different innovators, all doing different things within the healthcare space. I really want to thank our panel, Rachel, Nathan, and Philip, for coming on. I do apologize that we went a little bit over time, but I think it was really well worth it to hear what's up and coming and what's been going on the innovator side for healthcare. So the conversation again doesn't have to stop there. Please feel free to network throughout the summit. We have about an 8-minute break until our next main stage presentation. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next session.